DLC for Days Gone for PC with an update and remaster for PlayStation 5 was released today, and talking about PC, this update and DLC are so useless and not worth anything, you cannot tell much about it at all, but it perfectly describes modern PlayStation. Greedy fucks who want lots of money while doing nothing, and this DLC for $10 for PC shows it all. For modes, which are so minor it could have been just a minor update and nobody would have noticed, but they had to call it DLC Broken Roads, where there is no new story content, no new missions, no new major graphical improvements, no new technologies implemented like ray tracing, DLSS, FSR, XeSS for fuck's sake. Just some tweaking with lightning, several mods, and enhanced photo mode. Now pay $10. I do not know at the moment which company is more greedy, Sony or Nintendo. First is selling Air for $10, second selling physical copy of a game with graphics worse than Genshin Impact for iPhone just for $90. I liked Sony. They produced good games, decent consoles, and everything for a reasonable price. But that was back then. PlayStation 4 era, when PS4 Pro console was number one, exclusives were exclusives, and there were more than one successful game in production. Oh, and there were no remade remasters of remake of the same game released several years ago. But they got greedy and thought too much of themselves, since the same Days Gone, released in 2019, was too bad for Sony, since reviews from critics were not so great, so the second part got cancelled. Right now, for PlayStation 4, based on 104 critics review, 71 out of 100 with user score 8.5 out of 10, which essentially is low for Sony. For PC, 76 out of 10 based on 48 critics review and 8.8 out of 10 based on players review. So Sony created remaster for PlayStation 5 and an update for PC version. And also, by the way, Sony stated that PC players have received remastered version from the beginning when PS5 version was not released. But PC players for $10 can get DLC with no story content, but Horde of Foe survival mode, permadeath mode, speedrun mode, and enhanced photo mode. Is it worth $10? Hardly. But what's more important, update for the rest of PC players. Finally, DualSense haptic feedback support in wired mode. Finally, since before, DualSense was using same vibration algorithm as any generic gamepad. Accessibility features also was included, graphical improvements, new lighting scenarios, accurate light for sky and sun, significantly darker nighttime, double shadow map, resolution when shadow quality is set to the highest, and some additional improvements. But why is it happening right now with the game with no plans for the second part development, and how well these improvements show themselves? Well, Sony got used to being leader in console market during PS4 generation, and a game banger and a product success. So they got greedy and thought that success for years to come, but PS5 generation showed them not being right about everything above. Games, yeah, Spider-Man series was a success, but it was also released for PS4 Pro. Sackboy, nice. Demon's Souls, decent version as well. But what about new releases? From most famous ones, Concord, development of which costed $400 million, and servers of which were closed after just 2 weeks. Development included not only the game itself for PS and PC, but also episode in Netflix series about video games, motion capture for different cutscenes planned on release each week, and Sony were so sure of the game's success that there were no limits on spending. And the game totally failed, with Sony shutting down servers just after 2 weeks, refunding all the players, and trying to forget about this failure. Add to the collection unsure success for future marathon extraction shooter to be released in September 2025, just a year after Concord. Price of development still unknown, but keeping in mind the game was created from scratch, doubt it being cheap. So Sony had to remember about successful games they ignored because of their ego. Also, for some reason, Sony decided to reduce potential audience of PC players by regions available in PlayStation Network, new regions to which were not added in years. So, same successful Helldivers 2 active users and new users amount dropped significantly. But Sony needed nice numbers of new active PlayStation Network accounts, so I guess numbers on paper more important than real new players and profit, but returning to Days Gone. Despite zombie theme being too overused in media and by Sony specifically, Days Gone finds its way to surprise. Pretty similar to The Last of Us plot and lore, but with more actionable gameplay and open world available for player. And of course, much better PC port. I enjoyed the game much more than The Last of Us, and not only because of technical aspect, but because similar complexity or placed in actionable gameplay, which makes the game more interesting. In theory, in terms of gameplay can be compared to the same Red Dead Redemption 2, but with question about complexity of the plot. Days Gone, still Sony game, and Sony games have their recipe, which changes very rarely for non-multiplayer games. But I enjoyed the game, and so did millions of players both on PC and PlayStation. So this graphical update for PC and remaster for PS5 is the way of Sony to test their water, similarly to Oblivion for Xbox. They are not sure if the franchise is dead or alive, and if it is reasonable to start developing second part. And as a bonus, to loot some money from the old game with minimal investments. So, RPC changes noticeable. Graphical aspect of Days Gone was pretty good with decent optimization since the game is not only Steam Deck verified but also running high to max on most modern PCs. I personally hoped of addition of at least DLSS upscaler to the game itself, since I doubt a lot of PCs will run high FPS in 4K natively, but I guess that was too much work. What I really liked about this patch, added support of DualSense at least in wired mode. Finally, the game from Sony behaves like the game from Sony. Haptic feedback is good, adaptive triggers great as well. You can feel the game at the whole other level, same as it is, let's say, with the Cyberpunk. DualSense makes the game feel much better, and right now DualSense feels much better than any other controller. I enjoyed feeling of the same motorcycle, I enjoyed shooting much more than it was before, and keeping in mind that the shooting and motorcycle feeling even before the haptic feedback was great as it is, even if you are using a keyboard and the mouse, the gamepad support and haptic feedback support of DualSense makes it much greater. But what about graphics? Nothing spectacular. What I've noticed, road signs now have reflections from the light in the dark, nights are really darker and shadows a bit better. For the announcement, at least on Steam, online reaction is far from decent. Of course, weekend ahead, maybe online will grow then, but for now everything looks far from perfect. What worries me, Sony may look at the astonishing success of Oblivion from Xbox, which had 182,000 players in Steam while being available in Game Pass at the same time, and they will think that Days Gone is that. It is not that. For your DLC, you have done absolutely nothing for it to succeed. Same Witcher 3 Next Gen update, which was free by the way, added not only lots of graphical improvements, DLSS, ray tracing support, but also some side quests and even normalized dialogue speed for Russian version. Since at original release, narration was done without seeing the speed of characters talking, so actors' speed of sentences was adjusted to the characters after everything was recorded, and it was horrific. Sometimes too slow, sometimes too fast. But after Next Gen update, it was normalized in the whole game. Oh, and New Game Plus as well. So what do we have here? Ray tracing? None. DLSS frame generation? None. Even DLSS or FSR upscaler for players to game in high FPS in, let's say, 4K? None. Some minor lighting improvements, increased contrast at night and support of DualSense, which is the biggest improvement of them all. Paid DLC? For what? Enhanced photo mode? Permadeath, speedrun, or Horde of Fallen survival mode? Why should anyone pay even $10 for that? Days Gone was and is a good game, but this update and DLC Broken Road is complete trash. No improvements into gameplay, microscopic improvements into graphics, not even normal upscaler added. If Sony is expecting something more than minimal boost in sales, they are delusional. Days Gone 2 should be delivered instead of another remastered remake of another Last of Us Horizon. But guess who is CEO of PlayStation Business Group? Herman Hulst, founder of Guerrilla Games. And guess who are developing Horizon series? Yes, Guerrilla Games. So we'll see new Horizon series with plot which is meh at best, but Days Gone with interesting idea and plot behind, we'll see this shitty so-called remaster. Sure, Horizon Zero Dawn remaster in 2024 for the game released in 2017? Gotcha. 7 years, a long time, just do not tell that to CD Projekt Red with their Witcher. And Horizon League Adventures for $60, and low rating from even the same PC gamer, 49 out of 100. It was what? And what was the idea behind? Or maybe Horizon Call of the Mountain for PlayStation VR 2. PlayStation VR for PS5, which was a disaster from the release. Right now it costs $400 for the fat. Where it is going wrong? Maybe in the price. At the release it was $650 and right now it is $400 later, but still PS5 Slim costs $500. Or maybe let's say games for VR2. VR2 doesn't support games already bought for PlayStation VR first generation. Like buy everything again. PlayStation VR 2 was such a disaster that Sony had to add PC support later just to sell it to someone. From the beginning, even on paper, accessory for the price of the console is idiocracy. But for that device, we had exclusive gaming Horizon series. For what? The game Climbing Simulator for the price of AAA title of $60 for the stillborn device. VR title from Horizon will take you 8.5 hours to complete, most of which you will be climbing. That's what Sony will support. Or another remake remastered of any part of The Last of Us, and cancel multiplayer of the first part available in the original game. So if Days Gone will not be released, that will mean only one thing: Sony's management are idiots who know nothing about how games work. Sony has a huge collection of franchises in their pocket: Killzone, Knack, Ratchet & Clank, Resistance, Formula 1, Siren, Gravity Rush. And by the way, continuing talking about PlayStation VR 2, VR market is very niche as it is. PC has much more games for VR, and even there this technology is not so widely used. But Sony has its own way. VR 2 for the price of PS5, not compatible with the games from VR first generation, and Horizon, which essentially is a demo version for PSVR 2, but which is selling as AAA title. Horizon series is perfect example of Sony's way of creating games. Open world, stealth in tall grass, protagonist being chosen one with happy end, and cliffhanger for the next part. So, Sony just prefers to use same stuff again and again, hoping to loot money for minimal changes in games. By the way, after Steam Deck's success on the market, lots of major companies started making something for portables market. ROG Ally, Lenovo Legion Go, MSI Claw, Zotac, Acer Nitro Blaze. Same Steam Deck got OLED version. So Sony remembered that not so long ago they had successful PlayStation Portable and not so popular PlayStation Vita, which failed to Nintendo 3DS because of pricing and use of technologies like double cameras or touchback part of the console. Also, proprietary memory cards made PS Vita failure, and Sony pretended to forget about portables market totally and gave it to Nintendo until the same Steam Deck. But right now, we have proved that market is ready for portables. Technologies have developed enough to be affordable and good. And what does Sony makes for portables market? Reincarnated PlayStation Portable? PS Vita 2? Nope. PS Portal. What is PS Portal? Absolute trash for the first 6 months after release, since now they are promising to fix everything, every software issue that I will mention next. Well, PS Portal is not self-sustaining portable. It requires PlayStation 5 and it uses remote play or power of PlayStation 5 in order to run games, but it streams picture to PS Portal. Well, not so good of an idea, but not so bad either. Many people play the same Steam Deck in bed, so let's say your PS5 is located in the living room, so you're playing PS Portal in bed. Okay, use case scenario. But it was not so great. Accessory for PlayStation 5 for you to play in bed costs 220 euros, half the price of PlayStation 5, while being DualSense with screen and battery. The only function of PS Portal is to stream picture from PlayStation 5, and even with this only function, it managed to fail. You maybe have watched reviews from others telling you that everything is great, their latency low, no lags, everything works as it should. Maybe they had some other type of PlayStation Portal, but for usual people, PlayStation Portal works completely different. About latency, if we'll be talking about single-player games or some games with no action, latency is acceptable, but you cannot tell it is non-existent. But you can notice latency even in main menu, when the list of games keep running even after you remove your finger from the stick. What to tell about online shooters, when you maybe not notice major latency, but you'll feel it, because movement will become viscous, So the difference will be noticeable for a person playing online shooters. But if you think latency was the only problem of PlayStation Portal, you are dead wrong. I don't know etiology, reasoning behind it or how to fix it, but the picture regularly was freezing once a minute or two. And it is really annoying, and not only in shooters, in every game freezing picture will drive you crazy after some time. Also, PlayStation Portal being positioned as portable, which you can use not only in the same Wi-Fi network as your PS5, but also anywhere with internet speed more than 5 megabits per second. Well, here we have in the middle of the nowhere, and internet speed is not great, but 4 times better than minimal requirements for PlayStation Portal to be used. So connecting to the hotspot, connecting and connecting. It didn't see PlayStation 5 outside the same Wi-Fi network. Oh, you maybe can fix it, but why should user fix it? Sony is not selling DIY kit, they are selling ready product for lots of money, which didn't do the tasks they are stating it can do. Now let's move to another problem with this thing. That's headphones. From the same Sony, not from PlayStation department. And irony is, you cannot use any Bluetooth headset, even from Sony, with Sony's PlayStation Portal. Maybe it doesn't have Bluetooth. Oh, it does. Heart of the console, CPU Snapdragon 680, which is system on crystal, and one of the components on this crystal is Bluetooth, which Sony has turned off. For what? Here you go, 2 new models for PlayStation, Pulse Elite and Pulse Explorer. Only wireless headsets supposed to be connected with PlayStation Portal, which are using same Bluetooth technology. PlayStation Portal even has separate physical button for this purpose. Oh, and Pulse Explorer headset costs like the same PlayStation Portal, 220 euros. Oh, and so that you would be more shocked, Steam Deck OLED is streaming same picture from the same PlayStation 5 with higher bitrate and HDR, what PlayStation Portal couldn't do. But still, returning to Days Gone. The game itself, the game is good. Port to PC is good as well. 4070 at least can easily run this game 1440p, 60 FPS on max settings and record gameplay at the same time. But DLC, they called it DLC, but in reality it is just bullshit to scam you for $10. So, I think you should try Days Gone. It is worth it, decent game in apocalyptic world, with well-written plot and pleasant gameplay, if you do not mind looking for gas in the middle of the game, since gas will be consumed really fast in the first half until you upgrade the bike to at least medium level. In other terms, very decent game. And I do really hope Sony will not be as dumb as they look right now and will start developing Days Gone 2 game. And for fuck's sake, do not buy $10 DLC. Absolutely waste of money, using which Sony is trying to compensate their failure of VR2 and the same Concord. As I see Sony right now, pretty same as Nintendo. Sony will be a good company, a pleasant company, unless they are really successful. As soon as both of these companies, both Nintendo and Sony, are really successful, then they are turning into pretty moody bastards. They will do anything to get more money, and then they will fail, and when they will be close to complete failure, they will become good company again. So, same as with Nintendo, I really hope Sony will be close to failure and they will become the same Sony, the same company which they were in PlayStation 4 era.